like to thank Martin Umaran. Many of you know him. He's the past president of the National Federation and truly a thought leader in our community that has connected so many of us, including some of the entrepreneurs that you will meet tonight, and I'm proud to introduce. Brunil Chamaki, I'm not sure he's on the call yet, but he is the young professional with a vision that created Assyrian Advisors and really connected so many of you to Silicon Valley Advantage and vice versa. And so many of our advisors have come through Assyrian Advisors and became advisors to Silicon Valley Advantage and participated in a lot of our portfolio companies. I'm also thrilled to have Dr. Ron Michael, who's been a senior advisor to SVA and to Assyrian Advisors on the panel with me. He has been an advisor to many of our companies on the medical side and has provided great vision and development and mentorship. As well as Ramin Zakaria, who's also joining us from Chicago. Ramin is a CFO, one of the best startup CFOs I have ever worked with. He's on the panel with me, and he will discuss the business development and some financial planning and the basics of how to start your company and how to really express your vision and present to and communicate with investors, which is a big part of it, big part of entrepreneurship. Welcome to each and every one of you. I'm thrilled that you have the passion for Assyrians, helping Assyrians, and being a part of the discussion tonight. Once again, if I could ask you to mute your mics, the agenda is as follows. For any of you that are already have your own company or have the desire to join a small company to gain the experience and then start your own, or want to just network with Assyrian professionals, this is why we've put so much work into bringing this webinar and the team together to share with you. The idea is really to have senior advisors, whether it's on biotech, whether it's on technology itself, AI, and a number of areas which we will touch on. Finding yourself basically a mentor or be a mentor to help one another. The essence of entrepreneurship is really networking. It is whether we like it or not, it is who you know, as well as what you know, but it is who you know. And what we hope to accomplish with these type of webinars and connecting with each other, finding the right mentors, being mentor and a role model for each other, is to create successes that we can certainly share with everybody else, and the ultimate goal of increasing the Assyrians' economic power. As many of you are in Silicon Valley or know about it and have been a part of successful startups, this is the basis of which Silicon Valley has become what it is, and so much wealth has been created. I started Silicon Valley Advantage with the idea of helping my university, which is Texas, University of Texas, Arlington. That was the basis of it. By then I was a serial entrepreneur. I had started several companies of my own. I knew a thing or two about building companies. So I started the technology Accelerator Silicon Valley Advantage just with the network of people that I knew. And it was all about bringing interesting technology. Please mute your mic. Interesting technologies to commercialization and connecting people or companies and ideas, interesting ideas in the right platform. So we focused on technology to start with, and then as portfolio companies came to us, we recruited a number of medical experts and started also bringing portfolios in medical devices, drug development, and of course, everything that is related to that, which is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and certainly software and life sciences. The idea behind these slides is sort of show you and share with you how we operate at Silicon Valley. It doesn't mean that that's how everything has to be. It's just an idea of how we operate, which is generally helpful for most entrepreneurs. Most startup companies, most entrepreneurs have similar needs. So having a helpful platform and a number of people that have been there and done that always helps. The idea is that you don't have to start from scratch and you don't have to learn everything on your own. There are accelerators all over the country, not just in Silicon Valley, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in Detroit, a number of platforms that you can join that will help you with your ideas, with commercialization, with getting you out there. So we're just one of many. We just happen to be Assyrians for Assyrians, and that really gives us I guess a different kind of connection with each other. So having said that, what are the typical things that we look for, at least at SVA, as most investors look for, is to have ideas or businesses or patents that solve a big world problem and that have really, really large markets, like markets in billions of dollars, right? So that's kind of the first check mark that we look for, whether it's a company that we license from a university and form ourselves, or it's a company that we bring from Taiwan or Toronto or Finland. It's still, the criteria is the same. Does it have a large market? Then the absolute next thing is network. It's the network of people. You know, it is again about connecting entrepreneurs with more senior advisors, with people that have been there and have done it, and that can hold their hand and connect them to the right groups and the right expertise. That's why we have so many medical doctors that have their own practices and have had their own businesses. That's why we have Ramin Zakaria and the team that we will introduce on the financial side, the legal side. The basics of starting a business or being a part of a new startup are still, the needs are very similar. The number one reason, if I were to give anybody advice, and I'm not really in the business of giving advice, but I love mentoring, is the number one reason is teams, is team of people, is who you have around you when you either become a part of a new company or you're starting your own. Build a team is number one, whether with its expertise, with diversity, with having the right attitude of being a team player. The number one reason venture capitalists invest in companies is they look at the team, not technology first. So how do you manage as an entrepreneur, and how do you attract talent is really, build a strong team, then everything else comes, right? It follows a good business plan, a good go-to-market strategy, is surrounding yourself with experienced executives that can help you at times where every company runs into problems, is an inevitable thing that happens, is to choose the right targets, is to think big, and is to to create an environment of trust within your own team and outside by sharing and giving credit and not taking credit, by motivating people and delegating and not trying to do everything yourself. So while some of these things appear to be sort of common sense, and they are, when you have your own company, it's a little bit harder to implement these things than it is to just know it, right? It's harder to practice. But again, that's why you want mentors and experienced executives to remind you of these things. The other really big factors that make smaller companies grow, allow them to grow, is strategic partnerships. So everything you see on this right side is what, again, a good platform, a good accelerator, a good small business administration entity, wherever you are, whether it's Detroit, Chicago, LA, or California, that's what they provide. They provide you with connections to bigger companies. They provide you with resources for developing your product and technology faster, with fast prototyping, with gaining access to and partnerships with the manufacturers that you may need if your product in fact needs to be manufactured. So again, don't try to do everything yourself. That's the idea. Bigger companies can help you, and they want to help you, and there is a benefit in it for them because they're constantly on the hunt for smaller companies that tend to be more innovative, much more nimble in developing products and new ideas that big company can be. And they ultimately can also become your exit strategy, which is, again, the idea of don't fall in love with your own idea too much, because at the end of the day, you are building a business, hopefully, that will grow and we will be worth a lot more than when you started. And at some point, you have to think about an exit strategy and how does everybody that has helped you, including yourself, benefit from creating a success. Okay, I think I already mentioned a lot of these, and again, this is what every startup needs, is a platform to connect with good advisors, with getting financial guidance, with connecting with strategic partners, getting introduction to funding sources, right? At the end of the day, every startup, every company needs funding. And that becomes really important. Board members that can provide value, advisory board members that can provide connections, and mentors. I can't say that enough times and repeat it enough times. Once you get established, if you're already established, you still need these things on the right side, right? You need to participate and create more networks, be connected to different networks, to get not take no for an answer, especially when it comes to funding. I think Ramin, Ron, a lot of you that have done this will attest to how difficult getting funding is and how many times you might get rejected and you come back a third time, a 50th time, or 100th time if it's needed. And again, get connected to your local SBA, Small Business Administration, that is supported by the federal government, and almost all their services are free of charge. An extremely valuable platform to get connected to. So I'm going to actually stop there for a second and see if there are any questions before I continue on with the rest of the slides. Any burning questions at this stage? Okay. All right. So what's the kind of the process of building companies, right? And what do accelerators like Silicon Valley Advantage, like Plug and Play, like all these other incubators that exist around the country do for you? First of all, they help you at this very beginning with how to create a large market for your business, right? For your idea. If you're joining a company already, is doing the research, understanding how big the competition is and how the competitors have gotten into the market. And so you can see a model that you can follow. The second part is the incubation itself, which is what I just talked about. But what do we help companies with is just that, is matching them up with the right mentors, with the right business advisor, expert advisor, legal, all of those are a part of the incubation process until you get to a point where you feel comfortable and your mentors feel comfortable that you have a credible and defensible business plan with some financials in there, which Ramin will talk about here shortly. And then you set out to go to venture capital, to strategic partners to get your idea funded, and finally move to commercialization. Okay. Well, here is the wonderful team. A lot of you are seeing yourself on this slide. We have an amazing team of people that come in and help when it's needed. Odi is with us. He's a serial entrepreneur. I'll have him from Canada. I'll have him introduce himself shortly. Ramin and Ron, I already introduced. Bonnie Tamras is a wonderful pharmacologist and a professor at UCSF, has helped a number of our companies. Dr. Chris Sarkis, unfortunately, was not able to join us today due to a conflict, but he's been a part of a number of our companies. And Kathy is our life sciences project manager. She's a researcher herself. Dr. Howard Mathis is our chief data scientist. He'll be helping with some of our companies that I'm about to announce here shortly, and so on. So again, it's the team of people. And we have a list of who else is on these teams and what their areas of expertise are. And then who are some of the strategic relationships that SVA Silicon Valley Advantage has developed over the years, and why these strategic partners are so important in helping our companies grow. Everything from Biocom being a platform for biotech companies, connecting startups to larger companies and a lot of resources, to biopharma connection that make a tremendous amount of connections for our biotech startups, to Woodside Capital that help our startups potentially exit, and development partners like Offcode in Finland that when it comes to software, AI, IoT devices, medical devices, tremendous resource for all of you to connect to that is rather inexpensive, and the expertise are just bar none. And then, of course, our big connection with TTA, which is the Taiwan Tech Arena, that is the Taiwanese Ministry of Science and Technology. And a number of our companies actually come from Taiwan, a tremendous amount of technology being developed there. And of course, not the least of all, Assyrian Advisors and Assyrian Media, and that help us on a regular basis when we need media coverage and spreading the word about what we're doing, and when we need additional resources or doing webinars like this. The other source that we have that we've developed over the years, I mentioned at the beginning, University of Texas Arlington is where I graduated from with an engineering degree. But since then, we have developed a number of relationships with universities around the world. I know those of you from located in Chicago, there's tremendous universities there that you're connected to or you've graduated from. They are a great source of patent IP and new ideas. Universities are, and they're in the business of licensing these technologies because they're not very good at commercializing them. So one excellent way of creating new companies is connecting with these high-end universities, licensing these technologies, and then forming a company around them. And we have a lot of experience doing that, and I'll point out some of the companies that came to us that way. Okay, so here's a list of some of the portfolio companies that we have in the technology area. SenseTech came from University of Texas, Arlington. And if you notice with the Assyrian flag is the designation that there is at least an Assyrian in one or two or more Assyrians participating in each one of these companies, okay? So SenseTech is a pH sensor. Ramin is our CFO. Ron Michael has been an advisor to the company. We have an Assyrian intern from Turlock that works at the company regularly. Henry has been in business development for SenseTech for some time, and the same thing with Ash Sensor. And I couldn't be more thrilled than introducing now George Sarkis, our very latest company that literally just joined SVA yesterday or today. And George is an entrepreneur from Modesto, and I'll let him speak about his company, introduce his company and what he's trying to develop, which is quite tremendous with a big market. George?
Thank you, Gloria, and thanks everyone. Thanks for having me, Gloria. My name is George Sarkis, and my background is engineering. I've been a software engineer for about 27 years. Been developing products for healthcare, especially emergency medical services, for the last 22 years. And just recently decided to branch off and started my own company and take some of these products, innovative products, for emergency medical services specifically, start to bring some of those to fruition. Company which we're still finding a name for it. We're going to come up with a pretty creative name here, but its focus really and vision is to use a natural language processing, which is a form of AI, to help with the clinical documentation process and resolve its challenges in the, like I said, especially the medical services, field. Trying to bring really AI up in the front world of EMS personnel to, not to go to any detail, but there's a lot of quality of documentation challenges, and the number one kind of mission here, and if there's any clinicians on this call, they would agree, is to help stop using clinicians as data entry clerks. Really, that's the company's mission, because that doesn't only make them happy, but it resolves a lot of areas and issues that there's some tangible ROI if they're resolved. So in a nutshell, that's what our company is focused on. So we joined Gloria here, hoping to get connected and get started and do things the right way from the business and finance and legal perspective. And we have a strong engineering team behind the idea and the product. So thanks again, Gloria.
Thank you, George, and welcome officially.
Thank you. And I actually like to, and I don't know if he's on the call, but I really didn't know about this organization, and I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for Martin. So Martin, Umaran, thank you if you're on. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's the networking and the connections. Ash sensor, and I'm going to skip through these quickly. We're just trying to give you an idea of the variety of companies that we have. Ash sensor is it's autonomous structural health of buildings, bridges, any kind of really structure that remotely can monitor the health of these buildings, and if any cracks or problems develop even inside the walls or bridges that are that one cannot see by the naked eye, it will it will detect it and report it remotely. So especially with this latest infrastructure bill that just got passed for a lot of smart infrastructure being built, the timing of this couldn't be any better. And I am not sure if John Hermes is on the call, but we have spoken to John about the possibility of being involved with this company, as he's a structural engineer in Detroit and has his own business already. And this could be quite interesting to him. Agromeans is a smart LED company. This one, CHSI, is a security system with facial recognition. Again, extremely appropriate for airports, hospitals, and secure areas. Usher is a successful cannabis grower in Modesto, again, a Martin introduction, that is looking to expand his business, and we're helping him raise, at least introduce him to sources of capital to accommodate his expansion. ACE is a materials company from Canada. They essentially have a laminate film that can make any glass shatterproof and bullet resistant. And a lot of police stations, government buildings, even retail stores are now using this, and we're helping them to grow their business in US. On the life sciences side, I'm happy to share with you a number of projects that again have Assyrian participation. Tana Therapeutic is right on top there. That is a licensed from Texas A&M, which SVA licensed, and then we formed a company around it. Ron has been involved with it. Again, Ramin is the CFO, and it's doing quite well. Same thing with Flat Medical, came from Taiwan to us. The two new companies that are literally starting next week or the week after Thanksgiving on December 1st, that Dr. Sarkis and Dr. K are involved with, are these two on the bottom. Bellex is developing drugs from natural sources, of botanical sources, for cancer, etc. ATP Bio, again, a company that Ron has been advising for some time, amazing drug development company from Taiwan, mostly women actually. And they are targeting some incredible diseases with their drug development, such as Alzheimer's eventually, and other neurodegenerative diseases. These flags are meant to show that we have additional companies coming. One is in the biotech space, and one is from France, the Professor Piona, that was introduced to us by Rebecca Simon, is patenting her drug discovery for oncology and cancer. And hopefully the beginning of the year, she will go through that process and will become a part of SVA. So here is where I like to introduce another amazing entrepreneur, Odi Israel from Toronto, who is one of the founders of Specific Biologics, as a company from Canada. And for those of you familiar with CRISPR, this is sort of, I call it the next generation of gene editing and CRISPR. Tremendous market and a huge accomplishment. Odi, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gloria, for having me. And I want to say I'm sorry. I just landed in Toronto. I was in Boston for business, so I'm in the airport right now. Hope it doesn't get busy and loud, but if it does, please forgive me. Other than that, yeah, Specific Biologics is, it's a startup, discovery stage company. We are developing the next generation genetic technologies. Technology can be used to treat cancers and pretty much any rare diseases like cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, and childhood blindness. We are based in Toronto, Canada, and under the Johnson Johnson G Labs incubator. It's basically a floor in downtown Toronto with all different biotech companies in there. We're, in terms of financing, we're pretty close to closing a multi-million-dollar deal with some Canadian VC investors, and pretty much from there, we're going to be expanding our portfolio. We have about 4 or 5 different therapeutics. We want to have about 10 therapeutics, and from there, we'll pick 2 or 3 and advance to clinic. Beyond that, in terms of growing our company, just back to Gloria's point, is about networking and forming a partnership. So I consider myself very fortunate. I met Gloria through the Assyrian advisors, and from there I got connected to the SVA, and then Gloria kind of basically matched us with one of her portfolio companies, Taiwan Therapeutics. So we have a means to edit cells, but there's different cells in your body. Taiwan has a technology that can be used to deliver our machinery to different cells in the body. So that's, we just started working with each other, testing the technologies, and we're very excited. Beyond that, I'm happy to be here and happy to support anybody else who is interested in this whole, the journey of entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Odi.
My pleasure.
I consider Odi a wonderful entrepreneur. He obviously has already been a part of this startup. He's helping a number of other startups. He's a total business development guy and a great personality for an entrepreneurship. So it's been thrilling to get to know you and work with you.
My pleasure.
Okay, I already talked about a lot of these, so I'm gonna skip through them. And these are some of our previous companies that we have helped. Again, this one, iStorage, is definitely a noteworthy one. John Michael in UK has built a tremendous company for cybersecurity with hardware. And we're still helping him in some fashion for funding and a successful exit, hopefully, in US. Direct New Energy is a solar company. ESOP was AI for taking gender and age into consideration before prescription medication is given. And we're still helping him with certain introductions. So here is something that I really want to point out. And that is that if you have desire to become an entrepreneur, you don't always have to come up with your own idea. You could certainly join an existing company. And again, being a part of the Accelerator, whether it's as an entrepreneur or an advisor, gives you that opportunity. So I want to point out some of the companies that we are considering right now to bring to our program. Fueled by Chocolate is just, just by the name is amazing, right? There is apparently a lot of, when chocolate is made, there is a lot of waste that just gets thrown away. And this lady in Colorado who's a chocolate maker has figured out how to turn that into biofuel. And the other one is Intelligent Traffic Light. Again, it falls beautifully into this new infrastructure scheme. Sun AI is a company that came to us recently from Chile, South America, and they have developed the software with AI to increase existing solar installations and wind by 10%. Very, very interesting business model, which I'm a big fan of, and they're waiting for a proposal from us. The other noteworthy ones are Glasses that Chris Sarkis and some of our spinal surgeon have evaluated as a very good tool for surgery, spinal surgery in particular. US Robots is a commercial lawnmower that is GPS guided. Interesting product, has some competition in the US market, but nevertheless. And of course, AHEAD or the companies like AHEAD that are using AI for drug development, and I'm sure Ron can speak to that a little bit as he's definitely dabbling into that in a big way. So if any of these companies or something like 50 or 60 new companies come our way every year, a lot of them from Taiwan and some from Finland, and as you could see from Canada and US, Australia, etc. So there is no lack of companies that we can look at. It's a matter of choosing the right ones that fit our criteria, and for you, the right ones with your expertise and areas of interest. Woodside Capital is one of our strategic partners that manage successful exits. Biopharma Connection I spoke about. Taiwan Tech Arena is where a lot of our startups come from, and Offcode is our partner in Finland that truly is an amazing engineering in terms of software, AI, hardware, and prototype and manufacturing development. Here are some of our legal resources and additional strategic partners that, again, we can tap into based on the need of our startups. So at this point, before we go into the summary, I'd like to invite Ramin Zakaria to speak and guide us a little bit about business planning and financial planning of startups, and followed by Dr. Ron Michael speaking of his experience in entrepreneurship. Ramin, should I stop sharing? Do you have slides?
No, it's okay. We don't have to go through any slides. I okay. Have some stuff, but that's no use in pulling it up. I can go quickly. So thank you, Gloria, for the warm introduction, and great to meet some of you. Great to see some familiar names and faces on here. As well, throughout the time that I've been working closely with Gloria, I've been able to meet a lot of interesting people, both from our culture and her backgrounds, as well as others that Gloria has developed a relationship with that are awesome, brilliant people. So it's a pleasure being amongst you all today, and pleasure hopefully meeting many others that I don't know in the future here. So as Gloria alluded to, I am a CFO of a small software company, roughly $20 million software company in Kentucky here that sells third-party risk management software. I've been in the finance industry for almost 10 years. Started my career in investment banking, focused on technology, M&A, so helping people raise capital, helping folks pursue acquisitions or pursue sales of their business to a private equity firm, a venture capital fund if they're raising capital, or strategic buyers, which vary obviously whenever you're looking at a different industry or different end market or product you're particularly serving. So and worked with quite a bit of interesting people throughout the years. I've interacted with public company CEOs and board members. I've sat across the table from some pretty neat folks. And currently our company just raised a Series C round that I led last year. For $33 million, we brought in Silversmith Capital Partners out of Boston, and essentially added more capital from Bain Capital Ventures and another one of our investors. So had an opportunity again to see what it takes from a startup perspective and a growth company perspective from the ground up to prepare them for a diligence process and prepare them from top to bottom financially and operationally for things that come with the day-to-day, as well as come with the process of raising capital. So for a lot of the founders that are joining us today, it's a full-time job to basically try to run an entire company, but it's also a full-time job to then go through the dog and pony show of marketing your company to a bunch of people that know nothing about you and are dealing with thousands upon thousands of other smart and brilliant founders like yourself to basically deploy capital into the business. So many times it is very stressful, but I think at the end of the day, the more people you have on your side that are not only have been in this position before, but actually can be an extension to a lot of the skill sets that you have, either from a technical standpoint, if you're a software developer or a technical standpoint, if you're an engineer or someone in the medical field, like many of the folks that are part of SVA or have been mentors of SVR, it's important to surround yourself with people that I think are, I would say, less brilliant like myself and have skill sets that will take a little bit of the burden off of you as it relates to that other full-time job I referred to, from raising capital and raising funds for your business to grow it, and obviously to pursue whatever strategies you are looking to pursue at an early stage. So part of my expertise, and prior to me joining as the CFO of the company I'm currently operating, is I had my own consulting company doing exactly what I've helped Gloria with and helped a couple companies that she's mentioned on in preparing for fundraising. And I think one of the key questions that a lot of our founders and folks have early stage or at the startup or seed stage is, what do I need to expect in terms of the analytics or in terms of what I need to produce in a fundraising process? And it really boils down to a few simple things. First and foremost, having some sort of indication of how you can make money is always important. For a lot of these early stage ideas, it's really the technology and the IP portfolio and really the know-how and wherewithal internally you have as a team or as a founder that I think people are most interested in, but they also want to know how you're going to make the dollars and cents, because after all, cash is king. So having an indication of how much you can monetize or how much revenue you can make, even if it is a few years down the line, or even, quite frankly, how big the market is from a total addressable market perspective, is extremely important and critical for all of you as you consider raising capital. And I think that's very simple at a high level, but when you start digging into these investors, especially when they feel that they're like sharks, once they sense a little bit of blood in the water, you're a technical founder, they tend to poke you at things that they're really good at and know that you might be weak at because you're more focused on, say, building software or building medical technology, right? So again, for someone like me coming alongside you, or someone that is in the finance world or has seen this before, we serve as almost a Robin to you being the Batman, or being someone who works, even of like Alfred, if you get the Batman references, of kind of the person behind the scenes that make sure all the trains are running on time, make sure that you look smart, make sure that the business idea, the business model is up to snuff, and having something like a very baseline, bare bones revenue model that you can walk through and give at a high level is very important. The second thing that people typically talk through during a lot of these processes, especially when you're raising a seed round or even a series round, is having an understanding of the terms and some of the legal parameters and structures that are put into place. So again, with one of the companies I'm currently assisting Gloria with, we have a very awesome technical founder who is very knowledgeable about a variety of different security types, but just having someone like myself, or having someone who has the skill set like myself to bounce ideas off of based on an investor call or a group of investor calls, or even just being prepared proactively to talk about the different security structures or fund structures you can potentially prepare, is very critical. So take something like a preferred security that has a convertible option. It sounds like a bunch of, if you're not usually used to this type of stuff and you've really kept in, your technical world, these can sound like big words, but when you break it down and when you kind of sit through and talk through, or have someone like myself work alongside you, it's really just to, again, alleviate some of that burden and be that Alfred, as I said, if you're the Batman of that particular entity and organization. So having an understanding of the structure and being able to communicate that with confidence to these investors is very key. And I think one of the last points, because I'll try to keep this brief, trying to go fast in some of the things that I've seen and talked through. The other thing is, just thinking more broadly about different strategic areas and what you should focus on versus what is maybe more of a distraction, especially if you're an early stage or a venture company. A lot of these investors tend to want to see traction, whether you're a zero revenue company or like a business that I'm working with, a $20 million revenue company growing 35%, right? Like, everybody is always looking for, where's the traction? How much market is left? What are you doing to execute on that? When you're a smaller company, they especially want to focus on the traction, and they use that oftentimes as an excuse to say, I'm not going to invest in your company. Many times this can be disheartening, but it's obviously necessary that you continue to learn from those interactions and be prepared for with thoughtful kind of responses on that point of view, right? So again, if you're a technical founder, you're looking to pitch your IP, company that has significant IP or a patent portfolio or what have you. Some of these things are less relevant, but they still, from a commercialization standpoint, to an untrained investor, can be sticking points that they're not going to get. And sometimes that might be a good thing because you can move on and move forward to perhaps someone else that is a better fit for you. Other times it's necessary to prepare, a talk track. So having someone like myself or someone who's been in the seat and has done, I think I've done probably a dozen M&A transactions and have led or have been a part of probably 4 or 5 series rounds at this stage of my life. You tend to pick up on a lot of what these folks want, and traction again is one of those things where it's if you're an early stage company, it's kind of a fine line of wanting to show and be smart about what you've shown, but also understand that it's okay to be where you are from a technical standpoint and try to lean in on the technical point of view as opposed to trying to show them as user adoption or early customer adoption when it really in reality does not exist. So again, it's selling a combination of what's pragmatic and what's in front of you, but also having a vision of how you can make money into the future, which again bodes well when you start thinking about traction. So again, spoke very fast, but I want to be cognizant of time, and I appreciate obviously the platform here, and I'm always available to speak. Funny story, when I first became acquainted to Gloria, I reached out to her on my own behest, and she's introduced me to Dr. Ron Michael and some other folks on the line. I'm obviously familiar with some other folks she's mentioned as well, but it truly was organic. I kind of just knew through the grapevine of her, and I sent an email, and next thing you know, it's been, I think, almost 2 or 3 years now, and I've kind of been someone who's helped Gloria through a couple things and continue to want to volunteer my time and effort to help you all be successful and others that are in the network be successful. So my point of view is never hesitate to reach out to people, especially if you're a founder, whether it's an investor, whether it's someone like us. Always be proactive in reaching out to those folks, because it could be very, it could change your life literally with a cold email or cold call. And, being acquainted with Gloria obviously has helped me understand our community and obviously the billion people that are in it even more so. So I'll turn it back over to you, Gloria. Thank you for the platform today.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time and your effort, and with so many of our startups, you truly. George, Ramin is somebody you need to get to know quickly. He will help you in every possible way when it comes to fundraising and presenting and dealing with investors in general. Truly a tremendous startup CFO. And I got to tell you, a startup CFO is very different than big company CFOs. I have worked with both. It is a totally different skill set. Amazing, amazingly different and amazingly knowledgeable. Thank you, Ramin. Dr. Ron Michael, may I invite you to share your story briefly, please?
Sure. Thank you, Gloria. I'll be short. It's almost an hour already.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to speak at an event like this. Namely, there are so many different companies. How can you possibly find lessons that apply to all of them? How can you discuss things like that? Additionally, there's just not a lot of time. And then lastly, all the speakers have made essentially the same points that I want to make. So I concur with everything that's been said. So maybe I'll just restrict my comments to a couple of my companies and the overarching lessons learned from them. First and foremost, and you've heard this, don't get into something that you don't know very well. Probably better than anybody is how you should be looking at it. You have to be an expert in your own eyes, or else you're not going to succeed. And becoming that expert begins when you're young. Namely, you have to get the best possible education. You have to gather the skill set. I'm not saying every path is that. We all know of plenty of high school and college dropouts that have gone on to make billions. On the other hand, some of them have been world-class, world-renowned mathematicians and physicists who went on to create just such companies. For example, the recent Rivian IPO, we've all heard that buzz. The founder was an MIT PhD in engineering. So that's always a path. So I'm a neurosurgeon specializing in spine surgery. So it was natural early on in my entrepreneurial life to form and found a medical device company. We designed about 12 novel spinal implants in our first year of existence. Took each one of these through the FDA. And then my co-founder, did the other thing that's required for a device company or for any business for that matter, built the sales organization. So I oversaw the clinical and scientific aspects. My co-founder oversaw the building up of a sales organization so that once we had medical devices, they could be sold to the surgeons that we all knew and had developed relationships around the country. The lesson that comes out of a company like that is that you're in a tightly regulated sector, namely medical devices. The path is through the FDA. You have to know a lot about the FDA, but you're never going to know enough. So early on, you need to get yourself an FDA consultant. And this lesson will continue to percolate through the various things that I've done. Another company that I was involved with early stage, that company, by the way, the spine company, we sold to a larger device company, which themselves eventually sold to an even larger device company. So it's not an atypical life cycle, namely you set yourself up to be bought by somebody. Another company that I'd been involved with early on was a drug discovery company. It was early stages, it was drug discovery. This one I also felt uniquely qualified for, simply because I both understood the clinical science and of course, due to my biochemistry and molecular biology background, the drug discovery was intuitive as well. We took that company into phase 1. Our molecules are now in phase 2 studies, so we're cautiously optimistic that one day these drugs will be helping human beings. And again, a lesson there is very early on, we got ourselves an FDA consultant. What that did for us was we were able to schedule meetings with the FDA before we ever went down our path. So we can ask them, what would you like from us? And they would tell us, rather than we try to put it together ourselves, have the meeting with the FDA. And then they say, no, you didn't do this right. You should have done this. So in other words, find out what the this is before you embark on that. And then lastly, just a few lines maybe about a company that I'm currently working on. Drug discovery is inefficient. It's primitive actually, but that's where we still are in our progression through this. No human medicinal chemist can possibly keep track of the 150 million virtual compounds that are out there. Yet they try to do that. And that's what makes it have such a high failure rate. What we have set out to do was to marry artificial intelligence and machine learning with the assumptions that traditional drug discovery brings. So the assumptions are simple. We take a chemical and make it a drug, and that's where the evolution of it goes. What I've also done, which is a little different than what most people do, namely, I'm not working with just the known virtual universe. I've introduced some novel chemistries that will expand virtually infinitely the universe of possible molecules we can use, easily into the quadrillions and pentillions versus 150 million that are currently known. We tried this with my first target. At that time, it was a more primitive platform. Screened millions of molecules, physically purchased the ones I could purchase. Some are proprietary, as you can imagine. Purchased the 10, the top 100 scores. Of those, 9 gave us spectacular results. And we're now completing more, let's say, discovery phase testing. to see if we can gather enough data to perhaps apply to the FDA to allow a phase 1 study. As you can imagine, a company like this is always fundraising, so that's basically what we're doing as well right now. And we do have some very promising leads. I'm cautiously optimistic, and maybe next year I can give you an update. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, so I'm going to summarize by saying, again, repeating why we're here. We are here to build a network of people that will help you. We're here to also get your thoughts on what you need. If it's smaller groups that will be more helpful to you of common interest, for example, the software developers, the hardware developers, or drug development companies, we can create these smaller groups that are helpful. We very much hope that you will be the messengers for this platform to get others interested in the company or forming their own company and share their credentials. What Brunil has started is a tremendous database of professionals. We really like sharing credentials and build on that. I know there are a lot more amazing Assyrians out there with huge credentials. We like to bring them in and we like to have them involved. If you want a mentor, please choose one. If you want to become a mentor, please be one. Let's try to organize this. This is obviously the start of a good thing, what we hope to be a good thing. We can try to meet, again, Zoom is easy, wherever you are in the country or the world, on a monthly or quarterly basis. We very much hope we can build some successes and share them with everybody. And certainly through the process, in a sustainable way, stay connected with each other to build a better economic situation for everyone involved. So with that, I like to open it to Q&A. I'm sorry we went over our allotted time, but we're happy to stay and answer some questions and also get some of your thoughts of what we should do next and how to do it. So please feel free to unmute your mics and ask your questions or make suggestions. Any questions, any suggestions? Any of you having thoughts of starting your own company and or joining a startup company? I know some of you are, so speak up.
I'm Christmas. My
Hi,
name is
Christmas.
Christmas, and hi. I have an idea, but it's very, very different than all the ideas that I've seen here. So yes, I will need a mentor, and I've never done this, so I don't know how to start it, where to go. I know the product; it's very simple. So I would need help with my idea.
Great. Can you at least share with us whether it's a consumer device? Is it something that people would use or businesses would use?
It's for public, mostly for young people to use.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, I mean, we do have some business advisors I think would be good to connect you with. We'd have, and by the way, our typical process, so you know your ideas are safe with us, is to sign what's called a non-disclosure, mutual non-disclosure. So you could share your information with us. We also help you patent any ideas that you have.
Great.
Okay.
Would you like me to share it now, or
if you like, if you have a short version of it, what's called an elevator pitch, or we could sure, go ahead. Why don't you share it now?
It's basically an idea for young people to connect, to get introduced, and it's a fun, playful um, way of meeting people, especially in this COVID time when young people are not able to connect. Um, it's a device that it's fun, it's playful, it's cute. Well, in my opinion, at least. And from what I've investigated, it's cheap to make. It's not harmful. It's light. It's cheap to make, very cheap to make. I have
Okay.
all the ideas. And so, yeah, I just need someone to help me out to start it.
Okay. We will do that, Christmas. Happy to help you. There are a few other questions in the chat box. Joe Donovan is asking if we have any experience with health/medical based applications. Do you mean like a mobile phone application, Joe? Joe, are you still on the call? The answer is yes, we do. It's not been just purely an app. We haven't done, we've developed a number of apps and have helped companies that have an app related to an IoT device. It's not been just a pure app, but the answer is yes. Okay, there you are, you answered. Yes, it's a mobile app, no problem. We have developed plenty of apps, and again, our team in Finland is quite an expert in that. With apps though, you really have to assess the market is our usual advice, because there are just so many apps that it has to be something that can show traction in a considerable number before anybody in terms of investment pays attention to it. So if you have the wherewithal to develop it, share it, get in the tens and thousands of followers, and then you have a much better chance of success than starting from scratch. Okay, in terms of next steps, any of you, any thoughts with what we should do next? Should we have these types of meetings, the shorter version?
Gloria, I think you have one more question from Rebecca Simon, I believe, about the names of where we can find everyone, or who's willing to advise startups. So I think if you go to SVAadvantage.com, you can find the team name, Rebecca, and then obviously speaking to Gloria, she can probably connect you as she see fits. Sorry to take the platform from you, Gloria, but
no, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Just let us know who you want to connect with, and we're happy to connect you, but we generally first ask their permission, obviously.
Hi, I actually have a question.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Raman Shamanathan. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm drinking chai in honor of the
thank you.
Assyrian entrepreneurs. So I'm currently an ophthalmology resident in Florida, and I've kind of piggybacking off Dr. Michael's comments about work and something that you're an expert in. I have product ideas, not necessarily company ideas, that are related to the field of ophthalmology. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts, or anybody else's thoughts, about holding off until I graduate from residency, just in case I don't want the intellectual property to be taken by the university? Is that something that I need to be careful about? I don't know, what do you think?
The answer is yes, you need to be careful about. If you've developed it with the help of the university and you've used the university facilities, or that they have patented it for you, then they can, have a little bit of a claim on it, right? You can always license it from them. But if it's strictly your own invention and the university hasn't had anything to do with it and have not patented it, then you can go ahead and file a provisional patent on your own ideas while you're still a resident. The university can't claim it if it's not their idea or their facilities has not been used. Does that help answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, no, I mean, it does, thank you. But I think the main point is, because right now it's just an idea in my head. I haven't put, I haven't built something yet. My question is, should I hold off on doing anything until I graduate resident, or is there something I can get started now?
Well, no. So, Gloria, to reiterate, maybe again, I'll jump in there, Gloria, to take another stab at it. So there's two things I think that are, there's two things you need to consider. First and foremost, your career, the career path, which is I think a separate question in and of itself.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's, can you actually use the university to your advantage at some point, either while you are there, because they have a wide array of resources that you can leverage and probably scale faster, and a footprint that, again, as an entrepreneur, the Dunning-Kruger effect, if you've ever heard of it, is you tend to have a significant amount of confidence when you launch something, and when you have an idea in your head, you think it's the best idea that no one's ever thought of, and then it's a steep curve up and then a steep curve down after you kind of learn from it. So my advice to you, and frankly to anyone who's considering ideas like you are, while also trying to balance a career or a budding career as a resident and a doctor, is do some of the initial research and legwork by yourself, and expose yourself to people at a high level. You don't have to go into too much detail with people if you feel as though you might expose them to information or items or ideas that you could deem to be intellectual property. Don't shy away from that. I think there's a hesitancy to talk to people, sometimes, and I think many times it's worth having that hesitancy. Other times, I think it's a bit overdone and actually can prevent you from iterating on the idea internally, or iterating on it with someone who perhaps at the university that can help you. In terms of the claim on it, unless you are typically using the facilities of the company, or you've taken the idea from something that you've worked alongside with, either your professor or some doctor or some medical professional there that's tied to the university, the intellectual property claims tend to be weak unless they have clear, definitive proof, and they're willing to go to court on that front to take you up on it, right? So be cognizant of what type of facilities you're using. Be cognizant of the personnel you've talked to or referenced, specifically with respect to the idea. But as it pertains to a business idea while you're in residency, if you're doing it on, outside of your environment or outside of your hours that you work with, and they clearly don't have any sort of influence from that perspective, they typically won't have a strong enough claim to come after you.
And you can always, I'm sorry, Ron, you can always, if you think it's a novel idea, frankly, you can always file a provisional patent. Provisional patent is a $150 patent that you can file yourself. You don't have to include a lot of details in it at all, because it's not actually read. It just gives you a start date. So, that's always an option. But it runs out in 1 year. So after 1 year, you have to decide to either refile it again or convert it to an actual patent, which can get expensive. But it gives you a year to do your research.
And Gloria, one more thing. Sorry, Ron, to interrupt. There's someone in the lobby. They want to just get it. If you can accept it, or someone on the call, Jerry or Gary, if you can help in that respect. Ron, I know you're Dr. Ron. I know you're going to speak, so please go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. I think O'Hara got kicked off and needs to be let back in. Okay. Go ahead, Ron, sorry.
I assume that you've not used any significant resources. So my answer will basically take that into consideration, or my comments. It depends how long you have in your residency. If you're at the very beginning, it's a balancing act. You can't really pursue this full time, so you're going to chew up some of the patent life. Patents are limited to about 17 years. Sometimes you can extend them by a few years, etc., but that's the number most people use. So if you're in your internship and you have this idea and you can't really start working on it for 4 years, you've just chewed up a quarter of the useful life of your patent. On the other hand, if you're at the very end, definitely file it immediately and start doing what you can on the side. And once you're out, you start pursuing this. I would always err on the side of protecting something, and I'll tell you why. We live in a planet of 7.5 billion people, and a lot of them are very, very bright. So no matter how unique you think your idea is, there are probably a lot of people who have similar ideas. Just think about your own field. Ophthalmologists as a group are pretty smart guys, and they're working day in and day out, having the same problems in their specialty, and they're all trying to see how they could make their work go more easily. So innovation is going through everybody's mind. I would just always say it's your idea, but protect it before someone else comes up with it, because invariably, right now, for example, there are over 300 artificial intelligence and machine learning driven drug discovery companies. That's my competition. So even something as esoteric as that is just inundated with innovation. So I suspect the same holds true for you. So move quickly. And
I've got a year and a half left, so like right in the middle.
And to further go on something that Gloria said, universities don't charge all that much for licensing. If it's theirs, by all means, work with them, develop it there. You'll probably get it for 1 to 3% licensing sorts of arrangements, or sometimes even cheaper than that. So they'll pay all the patent costs, they'll pay to maintain the patents, and then when you're ready to run with it, you just cut them a small deal. They're not in the business of doing this, so they let that stuff out for pennies, literally.
Yep. And we have a lot of experience licensing from universities, Raman. If you think that's the case with yours, we're happy to help you do that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and good luck. That's wonderful. Are you going to stay in Florida or move after graduation?
My wife and I are trying to figure it out.
Okay.
We don't have any family here or anything, but I don't know. It's wherever job/fellowship takes me.
Right.
We're in Florida.
Jacksonville.
Okay, excellent.
We have a doctorpreneur on our team. When I showed the slide, is Dr. Huck Holtz. He's a kind of a top surgeon at Kaiser here in the Bay Area in Santa Clara. But he also has a lot of experience with developing his own medical devices. And he's obviously an ophthalmologist. So if you need any brainstorming, he's a very good guy and very, very helpful.
And my brother, John Michael, is also an ophthalmologist, retina guy. So if you want to bounce ideas off.
There, you have plenty of resources to tap into. A wonderful part of networking. Okay, any other questions or comments or suggestions? Should we just follow up with an email with everybody? Is that the best thing for what we might do next, and how often? Any thoughts on that?
Email works.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. I want to thank the panelists and all the participants. Again, it's thrilling to meet all of you. It's wonderful that you have shared the information. And when we follow up with you via email, please let us know how you found out about the webinar so that we have a good idea of how better to reach everybody. Odi, thank you for joining us all the way from Toronto and staying at the airport so you could be a part of this. Okay, if there aren't any additional questions or comments, thanks again. We're thrilled to have you, and thank you for your participation. Let's grow it from here.
Thank
Thank you all.
all.
Have a good evening. Happy
Okay.
Thanksgiving.